Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back for our second match of the night here. We've got Kryix versus Disbanded for the Solstice tournament. I am Cameron Moxie Freilich, and I am joined by Victoria Dorr Johnson. And how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I wasn't expecting the name drop. I like to keep an aura of mystery.
Uh-huh.
That and so people can't track me down on Facebook. But I'm doing pretty good though. What about yourself?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm ready to catch this match. It's seed against seed in the losers bracket. So whoever loses is going to be getting out in ninth versus 10th seed. Is about as close as it can get.
Yeah, and remember, it's going to be on live patch, which means Blizzard, the nuke that they dropped, it's going to be affecting this match too. So what we're going to be saying right now is, even if you're not a color caster, you're going to be betting a lot of money on seeing a lot of Genji.
Absolutely. I mean, we've already seen the repercussions in the Overwatch League, and you're just ready for things to echo out, right? The Brigitte is slowly but surely being phased out, even with the armor packs, and now without the armor packs, it's about to get a lot worse for these support players.
It's sort of like Blizzard did the snap, and all of the Brig players just crumbled away. It's such a shame as well because New Brig honestly was not that strong. She kept a lot of people in check, and I think we're going to be feeling a lot of ramifications, not just when it comes to Genji, but when it comes to backline survival, because Brig was that original bouncer who had the shield bash. If someone was coming towards an Ana, you could protect them. You didn't have to land that really hard to hit sleep dart. And so it's not just the Genji that's going to be feeling, well, a little bit of a new lease on life. You can have Doomfist back in, and oh boy, if you pair up old Doomfist with new Genji, that is just PTSD in a bundle for every single backline ever.
So with Brig out of the rotation, though, there's just a couple things that you can substitute in, right? The Lucio's always been a classic pairing with the Ana the Baptiste now with Immortality Field. Is going to be able to help keep the sports alive just a little bit. Some of the blade counters are going to be a little bit more tricky to pull off. And of course, you have to remember these dive heroes, they don't have the armor packs anymore to keep them up, to help them go in without nearly as much worry. Now, without the armor on those, their job is a little bit riskier, although there's more value to be had.
So my bet was, and as soon as I saw those break changes going on to experimental, that we would see a shift back towards the Lucio. Because you can really hard commit to a dive where you have that Zenyatta still be in place, and you can get that buffed back up Orb of Disco to have that 30% damage amplification, but Zen is just so vulnerable at the moment, and we see a lot of players, the aim is set the stage for the DPS, tanks go in, pull out these really important abilities and ultimates like Transcendence and Immortality Field to allow the Genji and the rest of the DPS to actually find vibe with the ultimates. If you put a Lucio in, then you don't necessarily need to have Sound Barrier available. You just need to have Speed Boost available. So you hit that E, and everybody just legs it away from the Genji, who finds himself a little bit short of breath when he tries to go for those kills.
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways you can try to counter, but I think the one thing that we can agree on is now more so than ever, mechanically intense positions have really become the forefront. Whether it be a Genji, whether it be something like a Lucio, the Ana, there's a lot of weight on execution, and so I think that's somewhere where we can see these teams slip up and also take advantage of one another.
Well, it's going to be all down to both the DPS and the support. So there's going to be a sort of mind games going on throughout all of these matchups. The DPS need to outshine the other team's DPS, but more importantly, the backline need to be able to have a safety net to themselves to actually hold on to abilities. That immortality field with the 25-second cooldown is so punishing. And if you invest it into a fight early, it's almost immediately that you're going to be feeling the consequence for your mistake. So if you have a Batiste player, teams are really going to have to rally around keeping that guy safe. It's not really going to be a lot of Ana coming in because Ana requires a really good positioning, but also a whole amount of peel that sometimes you just don't really have available. Batiste can sort of get himself out of trouble some of the times with those extra boots, allow himself to place himself in these really nice positions like a King's Row on that defense where you have that high ground ledge where we see Batiste players sometimes just nest up to make sure they're out of the fight. And heading over to Nepal, I really don't think that we will be seeing a lot of Ana because now you don't need her. You don't need that nano to make your DPS give them that extra oomph in ultimates because dry blades are just as terrifying as nano blades currently.
Yeah, and starting out here on Nepal will be in Sanctum, and we see two very different approaches here. The double shield versus the dive, so it's going to be up to Kivana and Ravo to cause a bit of chaos and make Kryix go a little higgledy-piggledy on this point. Kind of just mess with them and spread them out and find that one player, because this dive becomes a lot easier when there's not a Brigitte in the way. Kryix set themselves up in the corner and already Disbanded set themselves up on a nice set of angles here, just waiting for the right opportunity, trying to spot out that Zenyatta, but with an immortality field in the way, there's a good fit between them and actually finding success here. It's all about waiting for this control point to unlock before Kryix has to move. Good halt onto Kivana, forces out the bubble. Right, amazing flanking around the back side, forcing even further back, and Disbanded are rapidly taking space right now as Kryix are having to back, or trying to make their way forward, pardon me, onto the high ground, and Jerry with nothing to work with on this dash out of the point will take over to Disbanded to start.
So Kryix just don't have point presence at the moment. The Sequestra's up in this corner waiting to get spam damage to come through as they're building towards that tire. But they don't really have much in the way of actually getting a tick on the board. And Disbanded take advantage of that. The dive is still coming through. Kevin is being, well, a little bit on his own at the moment on that Winston. But now Kryix, they've had that space, they've moved on to point, and this is where the competition will be strong.
Perfect for them. They're set up nicely in this corner with the bunker. Kivana putting in a lot of damage on this Winston, nearly going down 2 frags. Go the way of Disbanded here as a huge dynamite lands over top from end. Jerry Kivana dropping another bubble on. That's been denying a lot of the healing away from the main tank. Spike, who will fall next, and the point is going to hold by Disbanded.
Oh, and Disbanded in this next fight, the captain can pop out that blade. And if the Genji is able to hit ultimate faster than Anion on the side of Kryix, that is a fight win for these guys. If you're Kryix, you're doing everything you can to buy yourself the space to get that ultimate online.
Yeah, it's just timing here to get the victory. And a unit 85% though has made their way relatively close. And of course, Kryix can wait a relatively long time to get that up. They've already taken a lot of space. Those Kivana looks to split them right on up here. Spike in the middle of no man's land, backing up behind the shield. Kivana trying to do it yet again, jumps in with a primal, takes down any unit. The captain's gonna fall up down onto another. No nano blade needed here for Disbanded. They're setting themselves up nicely to take this point. However, Isaiah is still a threat on the Scorpion. Should have to back up though.
But Disbanded, they're holding on to key ultimates, and it's going to be this last fight for Kryix. They've got so many things that they can use to regress in. You'll have the Nano Blade, you have things that can pull Anion's Transcendence out of the way. If you're Kryix, you're going to have to go to the point, drop supercharges, and hope Mason can come in clutch with this blade.
Well, this Transcendence is absolutely the most important thing on the board. The timing of it, making sure it's not wasted, is huge. Bob's gonna be coming in first. Pops and Transcendence early. The Nano Blade's still online, right? Amazing. Getting ready to drop his and put into the backline. Mr. Captain, who's found one. They're trading back and forth, but the red team is getting the better. And the Captain finds a third with the blade here. Disbanded are looking to take this point 100-0. Just 3 measly players to hunt down.
Yeah, but the Sigma is still alive, though, contesting it, but not for much longer. If you're Disbanded, the fact that Annie Yin used that Transcendence just a little bit too early, your Genji is clapping his hands with glee right about them, because the Sun was in such a horrible position, right? The Bob comes out, it's straight onto point, it's right next to your team, and your Arista just dropped a shield. You know that you don't have the time to waste, you have to win that fight, so you trans. And you trans, but it manages, well, to save your team from the Bob, but not from the Blade. Disbanded playing a very long game and coming in at the end with the kills needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you and I talked earlier about how now you don't really need that sound barrier to beat the Blade, especially when it's naked, but the Nano Blade is a whole other thing, right? You force that Transcendence out, it is just game over. Now, though, this is a whole different ball game as we head into Village.
Yeah, but no one actually going to be running this Symmetra strategy where you just haul up on point. Kryix are running the Mei, though, which requires them to have point possession in their favor for this composition to work. You want to wall out one of these sides and force Disbanded to come to you.
Now, Disbanded actually have a really tricky composition, one that we haven't really seen played on this map. The captain in the backline is just going to be a stunned up, and you take them down. Immortality field, however, will be forced out, and now as Disbanded take room, they're just giving away their Reinhardt. Kivana having much less success on that compared to the Winston, and Kryix finding themselves with the first bit of point possession they'll have all day.
Yeah, the captain only getting 10% of the Doomfist ultimate goes to show just how tricky the composition Disbanded are running is to pull off, because it's a Doomfist. The Doomfist requires mobility, he requires space, he requires a lack of CC on the other side, and Kryix are still running Wolf on this Brigitte. So your shield may be buffed a little bit in that health bar. Its deterioration is going to be a lot longer, but you've still got that shield bash necessary to just lock a Doomfist up and send him back to spawn.
Yeah, Kryix have already gotten past the hard part as well, right? This very, very bunkery composition is going to be hard to engage on, and closing this distance on the high ground. A nice boop down on the low ground. Capcom coming up big. Mimikyu's going to pick off his base just off of that. Now so much space made. 5 members cowering on point here. Kryix without much of an advantage, but they do have this station matrix to be putting out a lot of damage, just running straight past the Dodgers, and a beautiful immortality field from Mimikyu to keep them up, and the Shatter puts them right back down. Spike coming through big with the ultimate.
Oh, Wolf popping Rally as well. Rally has not had any changes, so you still get that overheal armor onto your health bar. If you're Kryix, that was all the support that you needed in that fight. And if you're Disbanded, you took 60% of the round just to get the best chance out of fighting, because you reset your entire composition pretty much in that last engagement. You don't have the ultimates necessary to actually just forcefully evict Kryix off the spot. Ravo is going to be coming up to this Graviton, but coming up is not good enough in this moment.
Absolutely not. It's all about the timing right now, all about getting in there and using that ultimate at the perfect time. Ravo at 65% though has a long way to go. Aniyun smartly backing up. Wolf babysitting the Doomfist going in, engaging on the backline, splits him up nicely, but Wolf is gonna shut him right back down. All the DPS fall for Disbanded, and so will their point presence crumbling away. 90%. Kryix are looking to lock up the second one and make it 1-1.
And it was such a fast fight as well. If Disbanded are even going to be able to touch, Ravo still has not hit that blade, that grab, and Njeri still would not have had the Death Blossom online. Kryix doing a very good job at shutting Disbanded down extremely quickly so that they keep that point presence, but they also make sure that enemies don't get the time to charge up those ults.
Yeah, and I think both teams have done a really good job of pushing their advantage, right? When they have point presence, they hold on to it, right? We see Disbanded's dive be very, very proactive. Kryix playing their bunker beautifully. The disengages have been perfect. Now, though, this third point, what do you think this means for that dynamic? Because clearly, Kryix do want to play a good bit slower.
So Kryix, they can't run that double shielding as effectively on Shrine as you can on Village, because the point is just a little bit more open. There are 4 ways that you can intrude onto it rather than the 2, which means you can't just Maywall up one side and bunker down. And even then, Disbanded are running this dive, so they're going to be extremely mobile, fully committing it too. And Jerry on that Tracer.
Yeah, nothing really to peel for Mimic, but also not much to really search from on the other side. Isaiah now on the Echo as well is going to create a few problems for Disbanded to deal with, but they've set themselves nicely up on the point here. Kryix with that double kill competition, but over top comes Stivana. The disengagement out of nowhere from Disbanded. Not enough follow-up damage though means their main tank goes down, and now they are trying to pick at scraps, find one of these members. Spike drop to half HP is going to be the lowest member for Kryix, but the heals are beautiful out of Aniyun, keeping everybody up and giving Kryix the first point tick.
Oh, it was a beautiful anti-nade, and it bought maybe 54% of the way to that nano. But Kryix, Aniyun was still there, was able to throw down the Immortality Field. Azia is able to pick up Cat God as well, so Disbanded getting staggered, but then Jerry! Who with the pulse? Except, oh, there's not a team there to capitalize. The tanks are up, Mimic's on the high ground, but do you want to regress into a bunker that's got double shield?
Absolutely, 1 player down, but you're trading out for 2. The dive is going to get there a lot quicker right about now. Those respawns are relatively slow since you're playing that bunker style. So Disbanded can get a lot of point pressure right now. However, great rally from Wolf, forcing them right on back. This is not a fight that Disbanded can take. However, right after, they've got Nano Blade. Here it comes. Over top comes the captain. Can he find another 3-piece to his aim, flashing and dashing his way right on through the roster of Kryix to take over the point for Disbanded.
But Disbanded's ultimate economy is looking a little bit bleak. Kevian is going to have that Primal Rage, but Primal Rage is something that you use to buy time. It doesn't have that pick potential that something like a Diva Bomb has, right? So if you're Kryix, you're coming into a whole lot. Supercharger, Sigma Flux, Death Blossom, Duplication, all of these things you can use to aggress in with, all of these things you can use to get a pick.
Yeah, they've got a lot of the tools to get themselves in. It's just a matter of how they use them, right? The Death Blossoms, as of late, haven't exactly been perfect. I believe we've actually seen Amazing on this same pick without finding much success. However, the duplication, I think, offers a lot. Seeing that Winston online is going to be huge. However, an early pick on the Kivana is going to take that option away entirely. They don't even need it here. Invulnerability field thrown out. Ant Matrix as well. A big commitment from Kryix, duplicating over onto the Diva. They want to make sure they have enough sustain, and they've just muscled their way through this point.
The self-destruct coming through as well. Disbanded running that Winston already without him means that they're without the bubble, they're without the cushion, and Kryix, they need to win this fight though. It's going to take so long to get Hannah out of the way with this primal that you're just wasting pick percentage.
But all the things they used everything but the bongo, and that was a good stagger from Disbanded.
Yeah, if you're Disbanded, you're extremely happy because you just drained your enemy's ultimate economy, and you've got ultimates to come in with this next fight. Mimic's going to have Nano, Decaptain's holding on to this blade. It's all down to Kryx's support lineup to be able to do something about the Genji, because Oppie put in the Sigma Flux in that last fight. You can't solo Sigma Flux the Genji when he's blading.
Yeah, now without that critical ultimate here, Kryix have to deal with this Nano Blade in a way they haven't done before. They did manage to do it without Transcendence prior. Let's see what they can do as Decaptain's coming for him yet again, decapitating one more player, make it a second. Wolf here, the next to fall to him. Disbanded set themselves up beautifully to cap this point one more time.
And that was one with two ultimates. They're holding on to Diva Bomb and Pulse Bomb as well. So if you're Kryix, you've only still got to work with the superchargers, and he's going to be coming in with Amplification Matrix. But if you're Disbanded, look at the composition that these guys are running. It's so mobile. Hannah swapped onto the Hammond, so he's not going to get hit by anything through that window. And Encherry and Decaptain are just going to be flitting away.
Yeah, Kivana's going to be a bit of a problem as well. Don't mention the staggers that are going to be coming out from this team. They should get themselves to 99%. All right, so they've given themselves a good bit of precedence up at the point, using the bomb to basically guarantee that. Oh, I love this bomb into the ball combo, but it doesn't connect onto anybody. Great anti-nade, though, out of Mimic. Sets them up for the dive. Rab follows up in 2 quick kills down the way of Disbanded. 95% is last right territory here for Kryix, doing everything in their power, but Amplification Matrix doesn't mean anything when Disbanded are just gonna walk through it. Wolf and Aniune hiding for their lives in the corner at this point, but no amount of support is gonna get you through that. Now it is just staggers for Kryix as they desperately try and hold on to this.
And there's just no pressure at the moment on Mimic. Kryix are going for the picks, but they're not going for the main support who's keeping the team alive on the sideline.
They set themselves up nicely, though, and off the back of Isaiah, a massive focusing beam finding 2. Kryix are going to manage to flip it back over.
Okay, so it is going to be final fight territory for Disbanded, who are going to be coming in with a blade. This is the team's goal, so get this blade online and make it big.
Absolutely, Kivana going to be opening up at this point. Separates away both the supports here. No healing for the front line of Kryix. Decaptain going to be taking up full advantage. That one coming in big with at least one on the blade, taking care of that key member that they weren't able to take care of earlier. Following up with yet another here. The DPS of Disbanded looking so deadly right about now. Self-destruct at the point to try and guarantee the takeover. Spike gets on just in time to deny it. Finally, the pressure relieved. It boils over top of Disbanded. Managed to take it back over. Overtime's going to tick down here, and it's the same situation as before. Kryix have to have a massive play to hold on to this.
But they're not close enough to the ultimate, and Azia just trying to swing. Might be able to get the Hammond points online, though, but there's so much focus on that fire.
Those mines demand a lot of space, but they're going to go down pretty much immediately, right? They exit the duplicate and then not able to follow up on that spike, now caught in the middle of their own mines. Not much can collapse onto them. Kryix are slowly but surely regrouping this. They've got mines of their own. Kivana falls to them. 4 versus 4 on top of the point here. Great diving slam from Spike. Gonna be putting more people into that threat of DPS. They have DPS, they have support, they have everything, but the captain has one more blade. Wolf falls. Is there gonna be a second to dash straight through? Finds another set of 2. He's massive for Disbanded right when they need it to close out this point on Nepal.
Oh, Kryix, they'd swapped a Lucio and a Moira in, so they didn't have Shield Bash or Immortality Field, and Disbanded are making them pay for the error. Disbanded taking Nepal after probably one of the closest rounds of that map I have ever witnessed.
Can we just bask into Captain's ultimate here? This was amazing. Every single one of them. I don't even have to know which one it is to tell you that it was so clutch for his team. Nano Blade, no Nano Blade. Every single one of them came up massive. That final fight was ridiculous. The speed, the pace at which he built it up was obscene, and then following up by finding just such important frags, especially down onto that Echo there, having so much so many problems, pardon me, taking care of. So much to highlight with this guy.
I mean, the thing is, you saw in that play of the game, right? The Genji got shield bashed, the Genji got stunned, and he still survived. And if you're Kryix, that is a big old mistake. If you manage to see a blading Genji everyone on the team has to turn their attention into getting him out of the fight. And that was something that Kryix really struggled with, having that focus to go for who really mattered. I saw it a little bit in that final fight when the point had flipped from one
rounds
side to
of
the
that
other side and it was overtime taking down. The Hammond does go for the Ana on the side, but it's only that one time. And because that support was constantly there, we even pointed it out ourselves when we saw that composition first coming out Disbanded, how the Ana would just be so vulnerable, so on her own, because there was nothing that would be sticking with that back line. It would be one support against what should have been the entirety of Kryix Esports, or at least against a Hammond or a Tracer, something that gave the Ana that little bit of pressure. Just as the Genji should have had that little bit of pressure when he bladed. If Kryix are able to do that in the next coming maps, then they should have a much better time.
Yeah, and you can tell they kind of tried to shut down the Ana, right? They put Isaiah on the Echo, which, my God, Isaiah was putting in some serious work. Those focusing beams were absolutely insane, but it just wasn't enough. And I'm not sure that Echo's really the character to be pressuring down an Ana with, right? Especially working with those awkward sight lines that Shrine offers you. And so moving into the next map, it needs to be a little bit cleaner, right? You want to apply pressure to that Ana because I can assume that Disbanded are going to be trying to run this dive as much as possible, given how strong it was. But taking it to a map where you can set that up well, where they can't really play dive. You can force them into a brawl, even if they brawled. I think they might still play Genji, given the lack of Brigitte, and then have Kryix be able to play some sort of flank, some sort of tracer, or Genji of their own to deal with the Ana that has been doing so much work that Mimic's been putting out.
Yeah, so if you're Kryix, you've also got map choice, right? And heading into a score, you've got your pick of Rialto, Route 66, and Gibraltar. And two of those are very dive-heavy maps, so I would gravitate towards Route 66, but I'm already seeing that these guys, they want to lock in Rialto, and that's just a little bit worrying. Either they're going to be trying to set up the mother of all crossfires with a double sniper or something like a pharmacy in the sky and an Ashe on the high ledge, or they're going to run into this dive and have nothing to deal with it again.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't mind that idea of a Pharah, right? We haven't actually seen any proper hit scan from Disbanded, and so dealing with that is something that maybe they're not exactly prepared to do. A Pharah Mercy could throw a wrench into their plan, or at least force them onto something that we haven't seen from them before, right? It's always kind of the idea of if you lose this matchup, force them onto a different one, and then offer them up something different so that they have to deal with it and something that you haven't actually played against them. But Kryix, I think they kind of want to play their own game here. They really, really like this double shield, and they really, really like playing Bunker and Rialto. It has some opportunities for that, but I think it has just as many opportunities for Disbanded.
And the really worrying thing is, it has opportunities for double shielding on the defense, but it can be extremely hard for double shielding to find any value on the offense because you have to be so ready to go into a fight, right? You have to have that mobile shield and sometimes a Zarya just to break into courtyard because the defenders just hole up either on the high ground or in that second corner just before the payload moves into courtyard and the entire space opens up, because you need to have something that can have the amount of pressure on the front line, because if you don't, then the danger is that that front line is just going to invade your space, walk past that Arista shield, pressure the Sigma out of the way, and set the stage for a DPS like a Widowmaker waiting on that high ledge right above where the payload needs to get to lock into B.
Yeah, and you mentioned walking past a lot of threats that Kryix is offering up, and that's where I want to kind of highlight some of the things that Disbanded are doing extremely correctly. Not a single amplification matrix was a problem for them. Every single one was moved past, dealt with. They use their mobility fantastically. The calling is really good. The in-game leading has got to be spot on for these guys, because the second that something comes out, they are all reacting to it. And not only are they reacting to it individually, but you can tell that they're moving as a team. It's not, oh, run away from the self-destruct. It's run away from the self-destruct as a group, make sure everybody's safe so that we can go back in for the same engage. And doing that on dive is not easy. You have 6 very, very mobile characters that all could go any way they want, but they're correctly getting out and then recalling in their dive. And the pace at which they can move in and out dependent on the ultimates and the ultimate economy is impressive, to say the least.
Yeah, the ultimate economy that these guys have, and my mind cycles back to how many of those fights they won with 1 ultimate, 2 ultimates, and they kept 3 in the bag to come into that next fight with. And when you say mobility and how strong this dive has been, there was a moment where I thought for sure that the Hammond on that last map of Nepal was going to go down. For sure, he should have gone. It was 1 against about 4 players. And he managed to get out because the Ana was able to get out. So the Ana actually starts rotating away from point, knowing that they'd lost the battle instead of being staggered out. Ana starts making a hasty retreat. And she turns around and she makes sure that the Hammond is able to get out as well alongside her. And a Hammond health bar does so much when it comes to charging up ultimate economies, right? We see Genjis get blades in the blink of an eye, sometimes like 20 seconds into a map, because they just farm it off of a Roadhog or a Hammond. That's all that they need, and then they're ready to just press Q and go. And so if you stagger out a Hammond, great, he's going to get into the fight fast, sure, but you've managed to get a whole bunch of ultimate charge. Losing out on that kill set Kryix back so much, because that was where they really came apart in that last map of Nepal. Everything that they did, they had to put so many ultimates in just to find even the slightest of foothold, and Disbanded were doing the exact same thing, but only attaching one ultimate to every fight.
Yeah, I mean, we can harken back to the fight where Disbanded spent 5 just taking the 1 point, and that, or pardon me, Kryix spent 5 just taking the 1 point, and then Disbanded just fired back with a singular blade, a naked blade, no nano required, and they're getting so much value out of what little they're actually putting in. I mean, I think you put it better. It only cost them 1 to take over the game, and then from there, they're rolling the ultimate economy, and 3 more fights go by. Kryix have built themselves up another 6 ultimates, but then Disbanded just counter it with 1 more. Let them have the point. Let them use all 5 and then go back in. I think if we want to see Kryix do better right now, they need to get a handle on their ultimate economy, and they need to get a handle on the value they get out of their ultimates, right? I think those amplification matrix, especially against dive, don't need to be for kills. I think they can be used to heal up your tanks as well, which is something that we don't see enough focus put on, I think, by the supports of Kryix.
Well, I mean, you've got an amplification matrix, and you've got all of Disbanded walking through it, but you're running an Orisa behind your Batiste, so if you save your halts, then you can actually force them to be right next to that window, right in front of it, and that should net you 1 kill, 2 kills if you've got the communication lines just going through. Halt comes down, amplification matrix goes through, everybody gets the word go, and everyone just fires straight on that poor soul who got caught out. This is something that you really can use. And I think that team cohesion, if we see Kryix start gelling together just a little bit better, that is when this fight is going to become a lot more even.
Well, it was a pretty close first map. We may talk about Kryix and their ultimate economy issues, but they did make it a 2-1 scoreline, so this one should be just as close, right? That was one of the best Nepal maps I have ever gotten to see. Let's see if Disbanded can follow up that performance with another one, because they're locking in this dive, and this one's a little bit different.
So Kryix are going to be on the attack this time around, but Disbanded. Oh, this is something different. This is something that we haven't really got to see from these guys. It's going to be double shield, but you're going to have a Batiste, and you're going to have him sticking with the front line while Capcom actually tries to pocket Jerry, or even better yet, Decapitate, because a pocketed damage boosted Genji is just as terrifying as a nano boost coming through. But Kryix doing a lovely job of dealing with this. They're going to swap Azia onto Afara, so you have a pressure onto Jerry so he can't just free shoot. And Amazing is going to go and try and infiltrate that backline and stir things up for Mimic.
I love how they've actually avoided sightlines to hide this Farah pick for the first little bit. The first rockets are going to come through. It won't quite pay out, but it's a nice little touch of something special. Now hammering down onto that Orisa shield. Kivana forced to back up around the corner. You've got to respect it, but this high ground is so good for the dive here. So good for Kryix and their will to actually move in, because then you can start having that Tesla cannon approach the high ground, start zapping down right onto that Orisa, and decide to go for the backline. Though he's a very vulnerable Ashe right here, like a child lost in a Walmart without their mother, can't quite get away. It's the captain who falls first. Spike, however, inside the dive will be going down, so Opti is going to be the only one left tank-wise for Kryix as they try to just get this cart past the corner, muscle it through, but the Orisa is just so hard to remove.
Your dive can be beautiful, but it doesn't matter if Mimic's able to just throw an immortality field and all of your efforts just go null and void, and then the one member that you do manage to get down to trade just gets rezzed back into the fight. Kryix having a really hard time getting into this courtyard because it is so open. As soon as the dive comes through, you are so vulnerable to attack on all of these angles that Disbanded are currently controlling. The high ground, the low ground, the side. All of these guys are set up all around.
Yeah, Disbanded own a lot of this map geometry, and that initial part is good for dive, but once you back up this corner, it gets a lot harder, right? Everything is so much thinner. There's not many places to actually set yourself up, and I love Rav being up on this high ground, right? Shutting down that dive extremely effectively, taking that space that would normally belong to them away from them. Great sleep, though, takes him out of the fight, and this is going to be an opportunity for them to move in. Spike along the back line, Kivana under a lot of pressure, but the heals are still going to be there, deciding it's time to stop going for the tank, go for the supports instead. Kryix getting real aggressive, Rymazen coming up with a two-man blade, looking for a three-piece McNugget here, extra sauce, Rabble on the cart, can't quite get the frag, but finds two more without the blade.
That was the team play that we wanted to see coming out from these guys. The front line, the tanks, they go to body mimic to make sure that the Batiste is put under the amount of pressure you're forced to put in a mortality field, all while Rymazen goes for the rest of the team and comes in huge with that blade. And Nazia, he's still got an ultimate, he's still got a barrage. It's going to be extremely hard to keep this far alive, even harder to find Vi because you're going to be putting it between double shielding and an inner field, but it can still provide distraction.
Yeah, especially here as the captain comes in with another one of his patented blades. Gonna be finding that Ana immediately. No main heals alive for for Oppie. Oppie to really be keeping him up. This Primal Rage separating a lot of people away. Though really great job by Spike picking this team apart, pulling them left and right, eventually taking himself out of the fight though. That's gonna be huge as the Grid of Flux now gets to contest here as the captain works his way up towards another blade. And Jerry though with the Bob is gonna be the play to watch.
Oh, the barrage found nothing because it was right into Ravo's shift, which means Sigma swallowed all of those rockets and turned them back in as health bars. And if you're Kryix, you're losing members you really don't want to go for, especially with RP just going down. Amazing's going to hold on to the blade, but Wolf invested that Valkyrie, which means you can't just follow after the Genji. And then jumping off the map means that there will be a team reset, but you've lost control of this courtyard space, and Mimic is coming into an amplification matrix. This is dangerous because while the tanks can avoid it by just diving past, your supports, especially Aniyun, are going to be so vulnerable. If the D.Va goes with the Winston, you deny the Ana the defense matrix that she needs to stay alive.
Yeah, I think at this point for Kryix, it's definitely a matter of being proactive, getting your successful dive before they can get theirs. Because you have this Nano Blade, you have the opportunity to end the fight early going in. Here comes Rymazen over the top to Captain. Anything you can do, he's gonna try to do better. Slashing and dashing, finds himself a nice set of two. Spreads down onto Spike here, getting their main tank back, and Kryix command a lot of respect on this point now as Ravo, Mimikyu, and crew should fall.
Oh, it's the final fight as well for Kryix, so they need to get this tailored, but it seems like they're being able to deal with what Disbanded throw their way. Kevi Hannah is actually so close to these Hammond mines that you do want to stick with that because you can just roll them through, drop Hammond mines on point, and that means that the payload should slow down for just a little bit longer, but they're not going to. They're going to swap off the Hammonds onto the Orisa, sacrificing the ult charge so you can have that double shielding back, and you're going to need it. Oppie is 9% away from this D.Va bomb, and you want that double shield. You want that just in case the Sigma shield is there dealing with Zia on the side to make sure you don't get nuked off the face of the earth.
Absolutely. Not only do they have double shield, they have a really good position with it as well. Set themselves up on the stairs. The Primal Rage is going to be used to take him apart yet again. It was good from Spike prior. See if he can manage to not kill himself this time. Oppie instead is going to be doing that one. Drops himself destruct just to get the remake, and Kivana has to be forced back though because they don't have that shield to deal with it. But the captain coming up over top. Another blade. Completely naked this one, but damage boosted by the Mercy. Will find a frag down onto Ravo, taking care of that tank threat. And with that, Kryix is going to be forced back, Disbanded to be forced back a good bit. Tesla Cannon as well, gonna be harassing on these supports. Capcom has nowhere to go but down and back to spawn. Kryix, they're gonna continue forward.
They just have to deal with the Bob on this payload, and if you're Jerry, that's an ultimate that you want back because you need something that can shut Rymazen down. And Jerry's actually going to swap onto the McCree, so you're going to be trying to shut this Nano Blade down with that flashbang. But Rava's holding onto that Sigma Flex, and maybe, just maybe, they're going to commit it to make sure that Rymazen cannot touch the ground when Blade comes through.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, right? Shutting down this Blade. We haven't seen either team effectively shut down a Blade yet, but Disbanded give themselves at least a little bit of breathing room here, but the Resurrect going down to make sure that's only for a quick moment. Captain building up towards the Blade. They have their Mortality Field. Blade's up over top. Nano's down on top of him. Rymazen finds the first down onto his counterpart here. Mimikyu the next. Can he find a third? He will. Kivana falls, and Kryix continue to put up an impressive dive to match that of Disbanded.
Oh, and I love that Rymazen was holding on to Blade until Rava put in that Sigma Flex, because as soon as the Sigma goes for the ultimate, the Genji blades. The Genji dashes right through and is able to stay alive and build himself the space and the rest of his team the space necessary to keep this payload moving. And if you're Disbanded, you're coming into the Supercharger. The Captain's onto the Torben, so you can try and discourage both Rymazen and Azia from going for your backline. but you still have to win this fight, otherwise that payload hit finish.
Hard time, especially with a far in your face. Goes down immediately, though. Great job, especially on the captain, peeling away and putting down a ton of damage onto those tanks.
It's such a good swap as well, Disbanded, forcing Azir off the Pharah and onto the Hanzo in one fight, because the captain is now on that Torbjorn. And you can keep the captain on the Torbjorn because it's not just finding value against the Pharah, it's finding value against Raimazing. This Genji's going to be so reluctant, especially with the supports that he had. Now that Wolf's onto the Brigitte, he can try to get armor packs, but not if he's going to be going down to the focus of 3 players.
Yeah, that's a quick down from Raimazing. Kryix now slowly running out of time here, heading towards that last fight territory, especially with the spawn being so far away. This Deadeye threatens to shut down a lot of things. Same with this Torch, pretty much everything is here to counter the dive. So much damage going straight into shields, but he's about to put on the firing range. Doesn't find anybody. No, the Immortality field is fantastic, keeping everybody up, forcing him right on back, though. Now Kryix doesn't have much space to work with, and Disbanded have pushed them very far back with 26 seconds left on the clock. It is now or never for them to push.
Don't have much space, don't have much ults either. Raimazing is going to be coming into this play, but it's going to be alone, and it's going to be against Ravo Sigma Flux once again, only this time Disbanded. They're going to be coming into a whole lot more than just that.
Oh, when we see Disbanded early engagement onto the 2 players on the right, a huge pick onto Api. Remember, this double shield spot means that you don't have anything in the way of ultimates. Spike trying to get some precedence over this point, put down the shield, but the Molten Core drops straight on the cart, means the floor is lava, and it is hot here for Disbanded. Their defense looks to hold on Rialto.
Yeah, Kryix, they need the Hail Mary. Api is onto that Hammond, just trying to keep that payload contested, but Disbanded, they're going to be coming into even more ultimates in just a couple of seconds. They don't even need the picks.
And honestly, I think one of the biggest things that helped them stabilize there was a swap over to Torbjorn from the captain. What a good pick, right? You have the overload to deal with the Winston, you have the turret to deal with the Genji, to deal with the Pharah, to deal with all these things they've been throwing at you. That was a really, really great last point swap from them.
And you've got Molten Core as well, and Molten Core is really effective in Rialto Point C, because you can just plonk it down on the main road, and it just locks up so much space. And with Kryix, no matter what composition you run, whether it's dive, whether it's double shielding, whether it's depot, you need space to operate. As soon as a Molten Core comes through, all of the momentum that you're trying to build up to get yourself into a position to get picks comes just absolutely screeching to a halt. Whether we'll see more Torbjorn, you can run him on defense from the get-go, or whether it's only going to be saved for those very niche moments where you do want to really hard counter that Genji, remains to be seen, though, as we'll look at the teams swapping sides.
Yeah, now let's see how Disbanded want to approach this map. I'm assuming it's probably going to be more of the same, either double shield or dive. We haven't seen all that much of the brawl. I believe we actually saw Disbanded run it once on Nepal, and by all means not finding any success on Village. Kryix, however, I think have got this double shield thing down. Their dive was pretty good. Raimazing is a fantastic Genji. I think Isaiah has had some real high points, especially on the Echo, so I love to see him swap to that, but it's a little bit of a higgledy-piggledy composition, if you will, Mux.
I mean, Azir is going to be doing a lot of damage, yes, but the Echo is going to be extremely vulnerable, especially pulling Wolf's attention away from the rest of the team, which means it all falls onto Anion's shoulders to keep the front line and the Genji alive as Disbanded bear down on them with a Genji of their own. But the Mercy, Cap God, you're going to be with the rest of the team. You're not going to be up in the skies. You don't have an Echo or a Pharah to pull your attention off.
Absolutely, a lot of healing to be done here for Kryix, and a lot of pressure being applied by Disbanded. So much pressure on the high ground as well. This time Kryix, they didn't put the Sigma up there, so you can already see the difference between them and Disbanded's defense. That Sigma was holding so much ground. Now the captain just gets the farm from up here. So much damage being put down. End Jerry as well just gets to toss in free dynamites over top of the tanks. They've got so much precedence over this. They're going to back up, allow their shields to come up as well, and just wait for their ultimates because they should be getting charged up soon.
Oh, Disbanded are waiting for their Sigma. Ravo's off on a solo flank at the moment, just peeping in through the back door, but that's denying his team another shield in a double shield composition, which means Kryix are having a field day. If you're Raimazing, you've almost a blade.
Oh my god! What the hell was that whole dynamite combo? And Jerry, look at that kill feed. It speaks for itself.
And look at the ultimate charge that Ash just rocketed up and has Bob online for when Kryix come to try and contest this. And if you're Kryix, you may have an amplification matrix, but you can drop that and find Disbanded for putting one right in your face as a mirror matchup.
And now with the mirror matchup, that Amp Matrix matters all the more. Hold off, Kivana, have you no mercy?
Oh, they have families. They have families, and I hope that their families can swim, because that is what happens if you don't have something that eats hulks and you have an Orisa who knows the placements of that one ability.
Yeah, it's not easy on the bridge, however. Look at this. Kryix actually nearly getting themselves some sort of recontest, however. Now they're just going to feed a little bit of extra ultimate charges. Aniune and their Sigma should be going down, and this is going to prompt some serious changes for them.
Well, this is really unfortunate as well if you're Kryix, because you just staggered yourself out of the fight, which means that you can't take that pole position, you can't take this high ground. And Jerry is already there with that double shielding composition to make sure that Kryix don't get their foot onto that staircase. And now, how can you set up your front line? You're forced into that side room all the while the payload gets to free move.
Yeah, the immortality field's already down. You lost Wolf. This is an easy 25-30 seconds off the clock, and a lot of cart pressure for Disbanded. They're going to put themselves into one fight territory here on the Bravo point. However, Disbanded, they also have a lot of ultimates to deal with this. They have the blade, however, so does Amazing. It's going to be a sword measuring contest if there ever was one here, as Disbanded set themselves up very, very passively, waiting for the fight to come to them. Kryix are going to get a little bit of control of that high ground that was taken away from them, but it's just a bait in as the captain comes up trying to find value with the blade. Will manage to pick up both of the supports here, taking away any source of healing from Kryix and giving this card over to point B.
This is the new combination that we're seeing for a Genji. Genji played with Supercharger, and it's absolutely devastating, because it's not just the Genji who's getting that damage buff, it's the rest of the team, and there isn't nothing really that you can put in the face except a blade of your own to try to stand against it.
Amazing gives them a foothold to work with, though. Wolf is going to make their way forward alongside Oppie. Oppie here, this demands a lot of respect, and I love the Disbanded are going to do that. They have to back off. You have a couple more ultimates to deal with this next push, but it's going to be a hard one.
Well, you have to do it before Wolf comes into this rally, because that's going to allow the team a lot of aggression, but aggression that Kryix can't afford right now. They know that they're out-ulted at the moment, and so they're just giving up space, allowing that pillar to move into C in the hopes that now that the point's narrowed out a little bit more, they can force more pressure onto the side of Disbanded.